Hey, everybody. Today on the AgentXcel podcast, we have our guest. Let me ask you, is it Klus?
Klus.
It's Klus. See, that's why I should have asked that. It's Klus, Monica Klus. Okay. Hey, everybody. Today on the AgentXcel podcast, we have our guest, Monica Klus. What's up, Monica? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I wanted to bring you on because you have, we have an interesting connection. So that's how I actually have probably followed you is, and I think it'd be good for the listeners to know because I bring on sometimes agents that are doing a ton of production, some that are doing 30, 40, 50 homes a year. And I like to sometimes share the connection that I have with people when I do have one. I don't with everybody, but yeah. So you, one of my clients was your boyfriend at the time, or one of my great clients ended up dating you. And then all of a sudden started buying real estate. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just over here, obviously he's my friend. So, but I'm like, so I actually teach a class to my agents and like, I tell them how sometimes when you lose out on a real estate transaction, it might be because like all of a sudden your client's mom now is a realtor or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. That's how I actually started following you just through that connection. Right. So, and then I looked you up probably about a month ago and I was like, oh shoot, like she's selling some real estate. Right. And I really I actually looked you up on the MLS because I do that from time to time. I don't know why. And I was like, she's out there.
I think it's interesting for agents to do that.
So do you like go on the MLS and like pull up closed transactions and try to like figure out sometime people or no?
Sometimes I do, but I tend to get triggered doing that if I come across an agent that was just a nightmare and I'm like, why are you like this? So I will go and look up their numbers, or if they just, want to puff up their chest, that's always fun to look up their numbers. So, just pipe down a little bit.
That's interesting that you said that because I used to do it often. And then I realized I was doing it and I was just like you. It was when I was in negotiation with people. And it started off healthy where I was like, oh, I just want to know, like, is this like a 4 agent a year person? Is it 150?
Right.
Like, I just wanted to kind of know the level of like where my negotiation was going to go. Then it started turning into like, I just could tell every time I did it, I was leaning a different way. I was being a little twisted, like, and and I'm just like, so I kind of stopped doing it at times. So I do it like for when I'm looking up guests, like I did with you, but thank you so much for just being on. I kind of wanted to make that introduction. So Monica, I want to take a backstory of like, when did you get your license? Like, why did you get your license? How did that whole story start?
Okay, so when I got my license, I want to say in 2016 at the end of the year. I moved here back from the East Coast because I was professionally dancing and I was moving around the country a lot. And I was expecting my daughter to come into the world. So I wanted to be close to family. So I moved back here. And when she was born, I was still trying to tamper with, auditioning and moving again, and things like doors kept shutting. And I was like, okay, I'm going to like throw my hands up and do plan B, which is I've always been drawn to real estate. I grew up around it. My parents were landlords and remodeled all the things since I was little. So that always fascinated me. And then on top of that, I knew for a fact I couldn't work under somebody else. I've done that and it just felt very restricting. So I knew real estate, even though you have to, be very self-disciplined, you're not capped. Like if I want to make a certain amount, I can, or if I want to, it's my choice. So that's what around that time is when I'm like, okay, we're going to get the license and we're going to go. But the first year I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out still.
Okay. And did you like, so how did you end up picking like your brokerages? So I actually remember seeing something you posted like a year or two ago, and I was like super proud of just like seeing it because it's almost like you were just kind of just honest about like making your selection with a company. And
yeah.
Would you share that a little bit? Because I think it's a really cool story, and I only know it from the social media aspect of seeing you post about it.
Yeah. So it was I was with a brokerage on the West Side, and I knew I really wanted to get into luxury. So I wanted to join a luxury brokerage. The one that I had joined was I guess a really big head honcho in town. And and I still professionally dance. So long story short, somebody saw something online that I was tagged in or something like that. And this agent was no longer with that brokerage, but moved it in front of them across their desk, basically, and saying, this is who you hired. And they turned around and said that it hurts their brand. You either need to remove any content like that, or we'll just take it as your resignation. And the broker that hired me had no idea this was going on because he was on vacation. He was very apologetic about it. It was the other, higher ups. And so, that was a tough decision for me, because if anybody that knows me knows that dance is like in my blood, and that's like asking me to take off my right arm. So there was just one question one of my best friends asked me. She said, if Sophia was in this position, which is my daughter, what would you tell her? And that's all I needed to hear. I didn't even have to answer it. So I had walked into the office and I was like, I'm going to walk away from this opportunity. And that's really that story. He had given me a couple different brokerages, and he was specifically talking about Launch, which is the one I'm with. And he had mentioned like, that's our biggest competitor. So my competitive butt was like, okay, I made the appointment the following day, and now I've been with them and I'm super happy with them.
So when you told them like why you were going there, were they just like shocked that that was even like a discussion?
Yeah, because I kind of got a little bit paranoid about it, because I didn't think somebody would have that kind of reaction. So when I did interview with the owner and broker, I literally flipped my phone around, showed him my social media. I was like, if anything on here bothers you, just tell me now. And he was really sweet. He was like, when can you start? It didn't bother him at all. I'm like, amen.
That's just interesting that anyone would, I mean, I obviously follow you and I'm like, oh, wait, so she's like passionate about her hobby of dancing or whatever, you know what I mean? Like who, like, oh, I like to play tennis. Like you're offended. Like that just seems unreasonable for you to have such a passion for something outside of real estate.
And I actually was like, what if I was, like a fitness model, and I had half naked pictures of me in a bathing suit, and it was kind of the same thing for me. I'm like, why are you picking and choosing what you find hurts your brand?
Sure. Yeah. So. Well, very interesting. Well, I saw that from afar, you post that, and we've never even talked about that. So I was just like, it was just, I can't even remember the specific post, but I was like, whoa, like this is going down, like she's like, it's nice to see people just like stand up for themselves, especially with you being, in a position where you probably really wanted to work for that brand.
I did.
And you were just like, at that time, you're just like, okay, well, this is how it's going to be up front. Like, let's just move on.
For sure.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Sophia. And so I know that you're like a single mom, and I really like the goal of this podcast. I'm always trying to connect like the listeners. I want someone to listen right now who like is a single mom and, trying to figure out like, how can I now? Cause I mean, you do a good amount of production. And so like that isn't easy. And so let me ask you first this, let's back up. What would you say like your percentage is buyer versus listing? And I
was just talking about this morning. It's so funny. I'm primarily a buyer's agent. So I would say right now I'm like a 70-30.
Yeah. I think we all are almost primarily buyer's agents with our inventory right now. Even if that wasn't your intention, I'm like, we're collecting 92 buyers per one listing we take. Therefore, I'm like, anybody who even was a listing agent is now a buyer's agent. So I asked that question because I thought that might be the answer. So like with you, like going back to that now with you being a single mom, like how could one even organize this? And I with when I go out and sell real estate, like I always applaud people that like have kids and can still get to like their baseball games. Cause like I'm like some days running around and I'm just like, I'm so thankful my dog, like you can leave him at home for 6 hours and no one calls like a protective services, because I'm like, I don't know how anybody could run a clientele and do that. So like, how does that work for you?
Well, for one, I would say I involve her a lot. So if I'm on showings, as long as it's not somebody that, I'm just meeting, most of my clients are referral or past clients, and they know we're a package deal. So we will go on showings together, and they know her just as much as they know me, truthfully. So that kind of does make it easier. Thank God my parents are in the picture, because if need be, I can drop them off or they'll pick her up and I'll go do my thing. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like I don't know any different, so I just make it work, because I mean, who else is going to do it? That's just my mentality.
That's super cool. Yeah. I think that's obvious. Like, like now, like hearing it, you're like, well, what other option do I have? Like I've got to go out and sell real estate and I have a child, therefore like get in the car. Let's go look at some homes. How are you like with this market right now, with it being like super challenging? This is like a very topical conversation. As someone listened to this in probably 5 years, it won't be relevant. Right now, I find that, the biggest challenge right now is, certain price points and certain financial situations are just so hard to find a house. How have you reconciled that? I mean, we're going through this now of just like the last 3 and 4 months of trying to figure out how to, because our job is to game plan for clients, right? Like as we sit there and we game plan for them, there's some now that are coming to us that are, perfectly qualified, have what used to be a decent amount of money to put down. And like that game now no longer works. And you're trying to explain to them that like what used to work 5 years ago that could have bought you a castle for 10,000 down, like now it's not gonna. So how are you having those conversations with your clients?
I want to say within the last year and a half, I've made my mistakes in terms of, I overworking when I know it's not working, because I'm very committed to my clients. And so that kind of it put me in a position where I'm like, okay, as much as I am glass half full type of person, I want to set my clients up for success. And if that means the truth hurts, so be it. And then they can choose if this is the right time. Again, every buyer is different. So their financial situation could work, but it's under these terms. So when I meet with them now, I'm kind of like, I want you to buy and I want to be there for you and I want to set you up for success. However, if we don't do it in A, B, and C, then we're not going to see any success. So it's harder when you're dealing with the clients that just first meet you versus, your past clients. Cause what do they have to trust? Like, I'm just a new person. So a lot of that is earning that along the way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely interesting. Cause like we have that topic all the time with our team now, is like how like there's certain clients that come to us and I'm like, we almost know that we can't help them. So what I'm doing is like, obviously we do the consultation like we've always did in the office. And I just go through, I'm just like a storyteller. So and when we have enough data to kind of give these stories all the time, with closing, we're just telling them like, hey, like here's this person and this person and this person. And like, this is what you'd have to do. So I think what was cool, what you said is like, it's on like your terms as the professional.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that anybody's like mad at you over that or?
No, but I think because it's kind of like, it's hard for them to believe. I feel a sense, because they don't understand what's going on. We're in this day in and day out. So it's kind of like sometimes with clients, I feel like they have to see it to believe it. And then after a while, you can see them loosening up.
Okay. So do you like, and why I'm going over this, because I think as someone listens to this in a month, this is going to be like super relevant. And I think that there's so many people out there right now that are going through this, that it's going to be beneficial to them, is when, like, do you ever have a situation that like they couldn't buy a house and you just got to straight up tell them like, hey, I know you're qualified for X. Reason I ask this is because it's interesting how like over the years, like it's changed. Meaning if someone calls us right now and says like, hey, Chris, I want a single family house for 220,000, 2-car garage, backyard. We can easily say that you can't do that. Right. But we can easily say it because I know that they couldn't go to you or anyone else and prove me wrong.
Right.
So now there's certain clients where it's like, you're kind of in this borderline where it's like, okay, yeah, you are qualified for that. And there are some homes out there that are priced like that. Like, there's always 4 out there for you, but with only being 4, it's always super hard for you with not having cash or a lot to put down. Therefore, so like, I've always found that to be like the hardest spot right there, is when you're not it's hard to be super confident with them because like, could someone go for 17 years and try to find them a house? Maybe. So you're trying to place this bet right there on like how, like in certain situations that 100% can't happen. Other people, you're like, I know 100% I can get you a house. And I'm finding right now there's a bulk amount of people that are in that middle zone where you're like, whoa, this is like a 70-30. It's almost like 70 they can't, 30 they could. And you got to almost decide, like, do you want to go the course with them? And are they prepared for like the 12, 13, 14 times they're going to make an offer, and prepared for the times where there's like 98 offers on a house? Like, how many times can they hear that?
Yeah. So when it comes to buyers like that, because I feel like I go through more of those than anything, is their commitment level. So when I'm preparing them for the beat down they're about to have, and as long as I know there's reciprocity there, like I'm sending them stuff, they're sending me stuff, and we have a showing, they're ready to go. They're not like, let me sleep on it. Then I know that it could go somewhere. But if I'm not getting anything in return, like any ambition towards getting this house and fighting for it, then I do believe it's just dead in the water.
Okay. Yeah. Cause like I'm being just like super transparent. My hardest thing is we get so many referrals, right? And so I'm just almost like, it's not even about the income to me. I'm trying to always just make the person who referred me look good. And we're in a different market now where I'm trying to explain to the referring party without giving anybody's financials. Like, hey, I haven't gotten too busy for people. This one just won't work. And so that's what we're trying to do right now. Just really still be like super engaged with the person who referred us the business and let them know like, this is just a different market. And, there's always going to be another market. So, we just got to get through this one and explain it. So you mentioned that past clients and like your network, that's your biggest form of getting business, right?
Yes.
Is that like through any like intentional way, or just you being you?
No, I love to keep in touch with my clients because I feel like so many of them are friends. So there are things that I do on a regular basis. And also I feel like the majority of them do follow me on social media. So prior to them even being clients, they were friends. So it's kind of like, they know, like, and trust me. So it's very easy for them to refer out.
Right. And so is there anything that you do intentionally, like outside of just getting repeat business, referral business? Do you do anything like daily and intentionally, or anything weekly, like open houses or calling people or any other type of lead sources?
So open houses, I used to do those a lot. Now inventories is very scarce. So that's like few and far in between. I do that, but that's, those to me are to capture new clients. The things I do for my current clients is either like send them a handwritten note, or the pies every year that I do. If they're celebrating a birthday or the child's birthday, for example, I'll just go the extra step to do that. Yearly anniversaries, I'll send them a card. And I do letters every quarter.
Okay. That's interesting that you still do some of that old school stuff as far as like writing a letter. And, I'm super heavy on that. I feel like I'm 98 years old sometimes when I'm trying to tell people. Before we got on this podcast, I taught my class on how we get referrals. And I feel as I'm sitting there, they're thinking I probably look like I'm 24. I feel like they think they're going to be getting this like Instagram class and the sexy class. I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to do it how we used to do it in 1990. But it still works. Like I think people are craving it more, as they sometimes want to be off social media. So what do you think, Monica, where, we all know a lot of realtors. I think there's probably 40,000 in Arizona, but yet there's probably 2,000 that do, a decent amount of the business. What do you think separates like them that don't succeed to someone like you? Is it mindset? Do you think it's tactical? Do you think it's goals that they have? Because it's something that I'm perplexed by all the time, that there's such an even distribution of what goes on, that like some agents can be overwhelmed with how much business they have. And then other people, all they can talk about is how they have none. And they, and some of those people who have none have been around here for 40 and 50 years and have the same, and some people who just moved here 7 years ago could be just crushing it. So do you think it's mindset, reputation, tactical, what do you find?
I think there's several deposits, but I do think it comes down to mindset. And I do think that there's two groups of people. I feel like there's the employees and the employers. And with that, sorry, I had a phone call.
Oh, no, you're fine.
With that, I feel like, in order for people to succeed, they have to get rid of their plan B. And I feel like that's what separates the agents that produce and then that don't produce. Like, I have a human being to take care of. That motivates me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I for something, and everything that I do with her is like, it's intentional. I feel like if an agent is not intentional, that also makes them suffer a little bit in their business. And I also feel like agents in the business are in it for the wrong reasons too. So I'll have a lot of newbies be like, I'm thinking about getting my license. What do you think is best to do right out the gate? Like, what does it take to succeed? And my answer is always like, you have to want to help people. Like, if you are not in the business to help people and the paycheck comes second, you will hate what you're doing and you just won't get it back.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so are you a goal setter? Do you sit down at the beginning of the year and say, I want to accomplish this as far as production? Is that how you're wired, or is it just kind of a willy-nilly go do good work?
I like goals just because it holds me accountable. I don't always hit them, which is a whole nother podcast for that. But, it's, it sets a benchmark for me, and I'm very competitive. So I'm only competing with myself. So if I don't hit the mark, I'm like, I'm not well.
Yeah. What are you most excited about for 2022, like in the real estate space? I'm going to go both ways with what's most exciting. And then also, what do you feel like is going to be, or is going to be our biggest challenge as far as realtors?
So I think what I'm most excited about is knowing that I can survive this kind of market. And, in a few years, the tables will probably turn and we're going to be talking about something completely different. And it's just like, how much grit do you have in order to stay afloat? Like, is your head above water? So if we can get through this and still be able to make a living, I think that's a win.
Yeah, it's cool that you said that. I think that grit was an interesting word. I did a podcast with Kevin Kaufman a few days ago, and he's someone who sells like probably 350 homes a year, 300. And we were having this conversation about how we both got introduced into real estate in about 06-ish, and it was just falling apart. And I remember getting into the market, and everybody who was in the previous one, who was just, banking on it, all of a sudden the market changed and it was a short sell and a lot of paperwork and calling the banks, and it took 12 months to close a house. And I remember coming into the office and I was new, so I realized it was a perspective issue. I was coming from working construction, making like $19,000 a year. And so when they were like crying about their job, I was like, whoa, like I'm not working on the roof anymore. I'm now in an office. It was like, I found out it was perspective. And then the second thing was, like you said, grit. It was learning that markets move, and the ones who usually make the most money in the market or learn how to actually help the most people are the ones that figure out the market of the moment. And at that time it was that. But what I've realized now over 16 years is I don't know if there's been some spots in the market where I was like, okay, it seemed balanced. It was like, oh, it took 42 days to sell a house and it took 2 weeks to find a buyer house. That seemed pretty balanced. But yeah, anytime I talk to anybody anymore, they're just like always talking about the market's always switching. And I'm finding that it's the people who are emotionally have the emotional stamina to just be willing to reconcile that and be like, yep, it switched. We got to learn, we got to regroup. And then in 2 more months, 6 more years, I don't know, it's going to be another market, but I'm finding the ones that know how to just keep switching their internal business model for whatever the market of the moment is usually wins.
Yeah. You as an agent, you have to learn to adapt, period. Because if you think the market's going to be great as a listing agent this year, wait 5 years from now and you're going to be like, oh my God, I need to be a buyer's agent. Like if you're not versatile, if you don't adapt well, I feel like you're going to sink, really.
Yeah. Do you have like a listing dance right now? I just text my wife sometimes and I'm like, ooh, we got gold. You know, I feel like it's totally skewed right now where when you get your listing, you're like,
It is.
I'm like, now I'm going to get 1,005 calls today. My voicemail is going to be full. I feel like I'm like, the game has changed.
It's overwhelming for sure.
Yeah. So what are, like, what's something that I didn't ask you that you think the world should know about you?
Oh man, that is a very interesting question. I wear many hats. I feel like I for everybody that knows me, they know that I do several different things. It's not just real estate. I'm very versatile. Guys, I still run and produce a show, dance professionally. That hasn't changed. And I love it. Like I love working. So the more the merrier.
Well, you don't consider, I mean, maybe it's work where you get paid, but that's definitely, you're going there saying like, this is my passion. And I would assume getting paid is just like a fun byproduct of that, right? Like you would, if it was, am I correct to say that that's a fun to you, that it doesn't feel like work?
For sure. I never considered dance work, even though it is technically a job. It never felt like work to me. I was going to say something. I just left my brain off. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
But I'm thankful to be able to still use my passion and still do that and have this vehicle of real estate too, because I've found so many things that I love about this as well.
Has that been a good form of community that refers you business?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's one thing that people need to realize is that whatever their passion is, like right now it's very interesting. I have like 4 clients I used to skateboard back in the day when I was young. And I have like 4 people right now who are buying or selling houses just from that era that I haven't even talked to in like 15 years, but still, just through social media, now that they're, grown up thinking about buying or selling.
Yeah.
I probably know 20 other realtors, but there's some connection that we formed through that community that they're still like, oh, we'd still do it if we were young enough to do it.
Absolutely.
And so just everyone grew apart and, how to go live their lives. But like, I feel that there's more people as long as you're organically doing it. Like if you're getting into a community to get real estate business, I find that would be, sniffed out. Well, how can people find out more about you? Like as far as social and things like that?
Yeah, I'm very present on social media, but specifically Instagram. Facebook, I'll do I just have it there to have it, and then I love TikTok. TikTok is my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Accounts though on IG.
Okay.
But
it's funny how we're flipped on that. I post like almost only on Facebook. I feel once again, I'm like, am I 80? Like, how is this happening? I'm like, it's like political post and then me. And as I'm scrolling, I'm like, I don't even know if I get anything outside of political posts anymore. So I can understand that Instagram is probably the better place to consume people's personal content and not just get flooded with a lot of mess.
But I feel like with like us making content, you have to know what you like seeing too. And that's why I'm attracted to Instagram, because it's clean, it's photos or videos.
Yeah.
And I like the aesthetic of that.
Okay.
So, and the story part, it just goes away in 24 hours and you can just, instead of posting something about it that doesn't matter in 2 days, like you can use that as a tool. With Facebook, I just feel like it's really cluttered and messy, a lot of reading. And I'm like, I book. So
yeah, I can agree with that. Cause I feel that when I'm on Instagram, I'm typically outside of a story of someone sharing, it's all almost original content.
Yeah.
I find that that's what Facebook is lacking anymore. It's just everybody who share. And I actually, I don't think I've ever shared one thing on my Facebook. I'm like, the world needs more original content, not people sharing stuff. But But anyways, Monica, thank you so much for hanging out. I really just wanted to hear your story, bring people on that are going out there and crushing it and getting through in this crazy market. And I just applaud you for all that you're doing. And I wish you nothing but the best on closing a ton more.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me too.
You're welcome, Monica. Bye.
Bye.